Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be making, no, not real pumpkins. We are going to be making a knitted pumpkin stack. But not any knitted pumpkin stack. This is a trailing ivy knitted pumpkin stack. And that's a mouthful. So stay tuned and I'll show you how I put this one together. I'm using Signet Aran and the colour on this one is saffron. Humongous ball of Aran which I've had in my stash for absolutely ages, and this colour is shade 0766. It's a beautiful yellow colour. And back to Signet, and it's a cream Signet Aran, and the colour on this one is just plain ordinary cream. And I'm using a little bit of green Aran from my stash to make the leaves and the curlicues for the top of the pumpkin stack. So let's get on with the make. For this project you're going to need a scissors, a crochet hook and a darning needle, a long doll needle, an I-cord maker, a glue gun, stuffing, some decorations of your choice to finish off the top of your pumpkin stack. Starting with the Signet Aran in the saffron shade, we're going to cast on and we're going to do 40 rows of pattern and 40 rows of plain for our first of the pumpkin stack, okay? Before you cast on, cut off about 2 to 3 meters. 3 meters I've got here roughly of the same yarn that you're using, because we're going to use that halfway to insert a drawstring rather than sew it in later. If you check back on my video for Trailing Ivy Beanie, this is the same pattern we're going to be using, just to add a little bit more punch to our pumpkins, okay? So we're going to cast on as normal, over under, all the way around. Couple of rows of plain before we start the pattern. Of plain, and now we're going to start the pattern. So like I said, Trailing Ivy is the pattern we're going to do, and it's a very simple pattern for anybody that wants to start off doing decorative patterns on their Addis or their Centros. And row 1 is wrap 2, knit 2, wrap 2, knit 2, wrap 2, knit 2, all the way around the bed of your machine. Wrap 2, knit 2, wrap 2, knit 2, wrap 2, knit 2. Apologies for my rather creaky Addi, I don't know why it's creaking. Wrap 2, knit 2, and just a little bit of advice when you're wrapping these here, make sure that they're not tight, so they're not pulling. See, there's tension there, don't have any super tension, just make sure this wrapped and it's just snug but not tight and not loose. Wrap 2, knit 2, wrap 2, knit 2, wrap 2, knit 2, wrap 2, knit 2, and on the Addi it ends up on a wrap 2. On the Centro you'll more likely end up on a knit 2, and that's absolutely fine. You just put your yarn, if you don't get it all tangly like I have just done, put your yarn back in the yarn feeder and we do a row of ordinary plain all the way around for one row. And we're back to our needle 1 and we do it all over again. Wrap 2, knit 2 all the way around and one row of plain, and we carry on doing that until we get to row 40. So I'll carry on doing that now. Wrap 2, knit 2, wrap 2, knit 2, wrap 2, knit 2, making sure that on the wrap you're getting your yarn right under these teeth here, okay, otherwise you'll get a drop stitch. Wrap 2, knit 2, wrap 2, knit 2, easy peasy lemon squeezy, wrap 2, knit 2, 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 wrap 2. Back into the yarn feeder, and one plain row all the way around back to needle 1, and we do it all over again. I'm going to carry on till I get to row 40, and then I'll come back with you, okay, and I'll show you the next stage. So I've just finished my 40 rows in total, 2 rows casting on, and then 38 rows of the pattern of trailing ivy. And what we're going to do now is we're going to insert a drawstring. So take your main yarn out and get the length of yarn that you put aside at the beginning. We're going to pop that in there. There we are, and we're just going to knit this in now, this one row, which will be our drawstring. Keeping our main yarn out of the way. And pop that around my neck, that's what I'm going to do. All the way around. There we go. Take that out. And that's our drawstring for later. And then we'll try not to tangle these two, so make sure that's out of the way. And pop our main yarn back in, and we're going to carry on knitting now another 40 rows. Okay, so we've got 40 rows of cast on and pattern, 1 row which we're putting in a drawstring, which is completely optional. You can always add that later on, in which case just carry on after your pattern and do 40 rows. But if you put in the drawstring, it's going to be 81 rows, okay, in the total scheme of things. So another 40 rows now, and that'll take me to 81 rows, but if you're leaving out the drawstring, you'll just get to 80 rows, okay? So I'm going to crank on now, making sure that's tucked in there nicely. And I'll see you when I get to my 81 rows and your 80 rows. And we're just on the last row now, coming up. There we go. I'm going to cut off about 2 feet of yarn in order to cast off. Finish off that stitch there. For those who haven't cast off or have problems, I always put the curved end of my Addi needle there in between those 2 little red pins, and then I loop up the 1 stitch closest to me. And for the first few stitches I do 1 stitch at a time, and then I get brave and I do a few more, 1 or 2, and then I can do 3 or 4. That's our work finished. Our trailing ivy pattern going on to the plain pattern, and we stretch that out, and as you can see it's a really nice texture pattern there. What I'm going to do next now is to knit up another pumpkin in that yellow colour, but this time I'm only going to do 60 rows, so that'll be half and half pattern and plain. And then on the 22 needle machine I'm going to do 40 rows with the cream to finish off in the same half and half pattern. Okay, so I'll see you back when I've got all those knitted up. Rather than bore you with knitting on all these different pieces, you get the idea with this one, and we'll do the assembly process then. So I'll see you in a bit. To start assembling our pumpkin stack, we're going to pull through the draw cord that we put into our work as we were knitting around, and you may get a little hole there where we can put a couple of stitches in there, but by all means don't do that, and you can put the drawstring round manually after that you've assembled. Okay, so we'll stretch our work. I have stretched it slightly. There we go. And as usual, we just put the one end inside the other as if we're doing a beanie. I have to say, I really do like this pattern, and it's so easy to do. So a couple of knots to secure in place. By all means do a few stitches as well if you like to do the belts and braces approach. I've got a lot of yarn there, so I'm going to trim that off to make it easier to tie some knots. And that's our first pumpkin ready for stuffing. I'm going to thread those inside the beanie now, or inside the pumpkin rather. It's hard to not think of beanies when everything looks like a beanie, but look how gorgeous is that. How gorgeous is that for such a simple way of making a different pattern other than your normal ordinary stitch. Isn't that just gorgeous? Anyway, remember that. Check out the other video that I've done for the trailing ivy beanie, which is this basically. But check it out anyway, because there's lots of other patterns on there. Chevron chic is absolutely divine, but you're gonna have to concentrate really well for chevron chic, because I have to say, and I'm going to make an admission here, okay, on my video as an admission when I go you, I went wrong. Look at that, look. I went wrong on my stitch. So we're going to stuff that now. We've got our drawstring there ready to go, all easy peasy. But if you don't put the drawstring in as you're knitting, as I showed you in the video, at this stage just put some matching yarn on a darning needle and thread it through. I'll get my darning needle and show you. And all you need to do is pick up 2 stitches, miss 2 stitches, 2 stitches, miss 2 stitches. Okay, so that's what you would do manually with a length of matching yarn on your darning needle if you decide to do it after the fact rather than while you're knitting. Okay, so I'm going to grab some stuffing now. Pop it in. I like to push it out to the edges, and I'm recycling stuffing here. If you wonder why there's all little bits in it, this is only for my own use. If I was going to be selling them, I would be using new stuffing, but I'm recycling here. So I like to push out to the edges to make sure we get a really good pumpkin-y shape on the outside. As you can see there, it's looking rather nice. And then I'll pop some in the centre then till I'm happy. So we get a nice pumpkin cauldron-y shape. And I'm going to pull on my drawstring and pull that in. And hopefully not snap it, because that would be a nightmare. And what I like about this, I'm just going to cut that off because I got a really long piece, and that is a nice long piece there we can use for attaching these 2 things, sorry, the 3 pumpkins together when we get to the end. There we go. So I'll do that off camera, tie that all together now, and then we'll do a nice little shape, get a nice little ball shape on him, and I'll show you then how to put the veins or the lines in there. Okay, so I'll be back in a minute. And now that I've finished cinching the pumpkin together, what I've done is I've put stitch markers at roughly 2 inches to 5 centimeters equally around the top there to give me a guide, so where I'm going to pull in my pumpkin. Okay, I've got a really long double length of yarn on my doll needle, so coming in from the center of the pumpkin, right in the center there, and through the center of this one, there we go, right through the middle of the hole there. I'm going to pull that through, and that knot should anchor in the bottom there. Doesn't matter if it pulls through a bit because it'll anchor on the stuffing then. So following our stitch marker, I'm going to pull and straight back through that hole again, straight up through the middle yet again. It's catching on the stuffing, which is a good thing because you get a good strong anchor then. I'm going to take that stitch marker out, and I'm going to pull on that yarn, and as you can see we get a nice little chunky curve there. Now I'm going to do that twice for each one because I like to make sure that we get a nice strong cinch for each one. Making sure that the line, there we go, and that's going to hold it. Now next one, bring your cord over to your next stitch marker, in through the bottom, pull him through. Oh, he's a tough little monkey. Oh yeah, take that stitch marker out, pull him in. And I decided to do this pattern because my husband has a channel of his own called Top of the Plots, and this year he's grown a massive, well, more than one, but a really massive one, pumpkin called Big Max, and that's the variety of pumpkin that he's grown. So pop along and have a look at Big Max. It's the most recent video that we've uploaded on there, and so that's what inspired me to, oh, I'll do a pumpkin stack using trailing ivy as a little bit different than just your normal straight stitch. So there we go, that's what we do. We just go around and round now, following our stitch markers or thereabout, just to give us a rough idea of where we want our cinches to go. And I will carry on now with the other ones, going all the way around, using our stitch markers as a rough guide. There we are, sorry I was a bit off camera there. And I may have to put more yarn on here. There we go. Take that one out. I think I've gone off my markers slightly. That one in there. You can do 4 if you prefer, 6 if you prefer. I think 4 is about the minimum for a pumpkin stack. Ooh, that's tough. That's a tight one. So test out your muscles doing that. And there we go. So that's working out quite nicely. Rearrange those a little bit. So I'll carry on with that now. I'm going to do another one there and another one there. I might end up with 4 actually, the way I've spaced this at the moment. I think I've gone a little bit thick there. But I'll be back in a moment, and you get the idea of how to do this now. Round the back, I do it twice just to make sure. Then I'll do the same with the yellow one, which is going to be the middle pumpkin in the stack, and the white one, which is going to be the top itty bitty one. Okay, so see you back in a minute and it'll all be magically pumpkinized. And here's my finished first pumpkin, which is going to be the bottom layer. As you can see, the pattern looks really well on there. And in the end, I ended up doing 6 because, as you saw when I was doing it together, I did actually bunch up one a little bit too much. So I thought I'll just split that in half. So we've ended up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so that's the big pumpkin going on the bottom. And from left to right, he's measuring about 7 inches, which is, without my glasses, roughly about 18 centimeters. So it's a fair size, not humongous, but a fair size. Okay, so I'm going to do, like I said, the yellow one and the white one now. I won't bore you with doing that on camera, and we'll come back together then, and we'll show you how we're going to put one on top of the other, or how I do it anyway, and then we'll add some embellishments on the top. And that's our 3 together. I need to put the fancy bits on there, but just a little note. When doing trailing ivy on an Addi 46 or a 22 machine of any make, due to the needle count on the machine, you will get a wrap too close together, okay? Which means that you do end up with a wider band there. Now, you can go, when you're making beanies and things, which has kind of come to me lately, and go through and pick up and pull one through the other like that, and work your way up to close that up if you want to. Okay, which would close that bit of a gap. Okay, as you can see there, that would sort that out to a certain extent. Okay, the other thing to do is, if you're going to use trailing ivy to make a pumpkin like this, just make sure when you're grabbing your yarn is to just put it down that line like that and hide it that way. Okay, obviously you don't get that with the 48 because the needle count is just right, so you don't get that line. And here are our finished pumpkins. So in order to attach the 3 together, you could use hot glue, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a very, very long length of yarn matching the bottom pumpkin, and I'm going to thread it through all of them and tie it at the bottom. Well, that's the plan anyway. So I'm going to insert it at the bottom of this one, and it's tough. There we go. And I'm going to leave a long tail on the bottom. Don't pull it all the way through. Now through the middle one. I'll lay that on top. What I like to do is to put the pointy out bits in the middle there, so they're kind of staggered a little bit. And then finally through the last one. Same thing there, stagger them, and then back through from the top right back down to the bottom. Make sure we don't tangle it as we go. And while you watch me assemble my pumpkin stack there, I'd like to give a shout out to Amanda Modin, who kindly sent me her pumpkin pie recipe over on my husband's Top of the Plots channel. Thank you, Amanda, much appreciated. I will be trying that very, very soon. To bring it out, there we are. See where that one is, and we'll bring that one out about there. There you go, that'll do perfectly well. Remove the needle, and then if we pull on our string, there's our pumpkin stack. Nice and firm until we tie it off. We tie it off on the bottom there. No hot glue. Keeping it simple. And then we'll just hide our tails inside the bottom pumpkin. Trim that off. And then we can arrange our pumpkin as we would like it. And there we go. Trailing ivy pumpkin stack. So now we need to decorate it. So with my I-cord maker, I have made 2 lengths of about 9 inches long and 2 lengths of about 12 inches long. Now I've made one already. I'll show you how I do that. If you don't already know, of course you might already know how to make them. So with the longer end, I always leave a long tail on, and with that tail on a darning needle, thread through the middle, till you get to the other end, pull through, stretch out. I like to use a really long pencil, but you can use whatever you want, really, whatever you've got to hand. Even a crochet hook would do. And once you've wound it around like that, not too tightly, and keep your finger on the end, and keep your other finger, it's a little bit of a juggling act, that one, on that end, and pull your little tool out of the middle. Now all we need to do, without snapping the yarn hopefully, is to pull on this yarn, and it does occasionally snap on me, and it is a little tight. There we go. And then hopefully we'll have curly whirlies. And then you can adjust your curly cue however you would like it, whether you wanted a tight curly cue or a slightly looser one. You can pull it out and have a looser one. So what I do then is I just put a little holding stitch in the end, and we're done. So that's 2 curly cues, and I've done 2 slightly longer ones just to ring the changes slightly. So I'll do those 2 now, and we'll attach them to the top of our pumpkin stack. Now while my glue gun is warming up there, I'm going to show you this ivy, which is a store-bought silk, like silk flowers, silk kind of false decorations, I guess. But anyway, you can pull the little sections off like that, and you end up with a rather nice little ivy piece. Now what I'm going to do with mine when my glue is hot enough is I'm going to put a little bit of glue in there, and I'm going to pop that little bit of ivy in there like that, pointing one up and 2 down onto my pumpkin stack like that. As you can see, that looks kind of cute. And then I'm going to attach my curly cues in like that, alternating the longer with the shorter. So I'm going to hot glue those in there like that, so you get the idea what they're going to look like. And I did toy with the idea of using a natural piece of my apple tree, but I've decided against that. I've got 2 corks here, which are not really what I wanted. I wanted a nice long cork, but I don't have one, so I'm going to go with what I've got. I'm going to hot glue those 2 together like that, and then I'm going to pop that in the middle there, and hopefully that will look half tidy. So that's the plan once my hot glue gun is all nice and warm and ready to go. And I probably might put a few little ivy stalks in there as well, just to make it a little bit more decorative. Less is more, so they say, but I gotta say I'm a bit of a maximalist. I like a lot of stuff, chuck it all in there. So I'll be back shortly. You can see what I'm going to do, but I'm not going to bore you with the hot glue and all of that, in case I get it all over my fingers and scream a bit. So I'll be back shortly with the finished pumpkin. And here's the finished pumpkin stack. Now I've used some of these silk autumn leaves as a base. I've not glued them on as yet. I'm kind of still toying with the idea as to whether I like them or not. But that's the finished article. It is very pretty, I reckon. I may put a little bit of brown on there to tone it down a little bit. It is a little bit on the light side. But as you can see, the little ivy pieces in the gaps there are really, really pretty. Some glue bits as well. And I like the curly cues. I like it all. I hope you like it too. So if you do like it, give us a thumbs up. Give us a thumbs up, yes. And don't forget to like, subscribe and comment. I love hearing your comments and I love replying to you because it's making a connection with you all, and I absolutely love that. So Check me out on Instagram as well, CraftyCars33, I'm on there. I try to share as much as humanly possible, which isn't as much as others because we are super busy trying to build around the house and repair things that have gone into disrepair. Check out my Etsy. I've got some other patterns available on Etsy which you can purchase. Thank you ever so much for tuning in. I do hope you like this pattern, and if you do make it, please tag me on Instagram. I would love to see it. Now, whether you use trailing ivy to do your pumpkin or whether you just stick to plain ordinary stockinette stitch, which is perfectly fine, of course it is. It'll be much quicker doing in stockinette, but I just wanted to see how trailing ivy pumpkin would turn out, and I think it's gorgeous. I'll see you again soon. Bye for now. If you'd like to make a donation to your local animal shelter or charity, that would be fantastic.